right, welcome back to Holy Audacity. Today we're here with
Nick, Joe.
Mackenzie.
Yay, and we're all excited to be back. We're freshmen in college, home, and we're here today, and our topic is we're going to be talking about the 5 virtues of the joyful mysteries. And something I think is really interesting, actually, for me is like we actually all go to Catholic colleges and went to Catholic high schools and probably Catholic grade schools. But okay, so anyway, I've been through this is our 15th year of Catholic school probably, and I did not know these virtues that went along with the mysteries of the Rosary until now. I guess I'd maybe heard of them loosely, but I didn't really know them until this first semester from this little book. She's a little rough now.
What's
she
the
fell
book
in
called?
The sink. It's just a little rosary book. It's called Rosary Novenas to Our Lady. But anyway, it has little devotions, and it tells you the virtue for the mystery. So I saw the joyful ones, and I was like, these virtues would really come in clutch for us right now. At our age and where we are in life, kind of on our campuses with our friends, these would be some cool virtues to find. So, to foster? I don't know. Is that the right word? Yeah. Okay. Well, anyway. Yes, that's a good word. Okay, so the first one will start. Oh, and the other theme of the day is just I want to say just the phrase it's now or never, because I even starting this podcast, it was yeah, it's a great idea later, down the line when we have the time, whatever. But it really is now or never. I think there's something in the gospel or the readings today where it was the leper got up immediately or something like that. Something in the word immediately, and that word stood out to me because it's we all maybe have this ideal version of ourselves that will become, the kind of person that maybe wakes up early and prays, or we were just talking about at night, I don't know what we're talking about. Something not scrolling at night or whatever, but just to we want to start becoming that person now, because it's not later, it's now. So to start with humility, I guess I'll open up with humility. In this humility, the first joyful mystery is the Annunciation. So the angel Gabriel is coming to Mary and telling her this is the plan that God has for you. Obviously, it goes without saying, she has complete free will and can say yes or no. The angel's laying it out and telling her hey, this is God's plan for you. And stay with me, it's kind of an abstract showing of humility, but we went to school that was translated House of Mary, right? So we've been hearing these Marian stories for years, but it wasn't until this Advent where I was able to reflect on what that actually looks like, because we're told, we've been told for years, all right, we're gonna emulate Mary, we're gonna copy Mary, we're gonna be like Mary. And we're okay, yeah, well, she was perfect, and we can't be perfect, so emulate Mary was what, sin less, I guess. But I think this Advent I was kind of able to see there's more there's concrete things that we can emulate, because what happened to her, it happens to each one of us, where maybe not as explicitly, but God has a plan for you and offers his plan, but you are 100% free to do what you want and to say yes to his plan for your life, or say no, and we'll see where you end up. I mean, again, free will. Accepting his will, I guess, is the humility. I don't know. Anyone else? Humility?
Yeah, I don't know. When you mentioned the Annunciation, one of my favorite paintings, I'm sure you guys have seen it, is the one, it's taken from the side, and it's obviously the angel Gabriel appearing to Mary. And one of the things that I found fascinating about it is that you can see Mary, she's scared in the painting, but the angel Gabriel is kind of hunched over like this, and because he's coming to her, appearing to her in a humble way as well, So I think that he's to Mary, it's all right, an angel appeared to me. This is one of the coolest things ever, right?
Yeah.
To the angel, it's I'm appearing to the mother of God, you know?
Wow.
And I think that humility is one of those things that like has to go both ways, you know? You have to be humble to the other person, and the other person is humble back to you, and it's like reciprocated almost.
Yeah. It's like relational.
Yeah.
Yeah, I always think about that a lot, and I like to think, I don't know why, but whenever I like hear like the Greek or the Latin word, I'm like, I think that's like really crazy, and like I guess like the word for like Mary's yes was like fiat, like that was like her like yes to God, but like I imagine like if you were like Mary in the moment, like a 14-year-old unmarried girl, and like God gives like you this like big plan for your life, and I can't imagine she could even fathom how it would play out, even as the angel's presenting it to her, but still like being humble enough to be like, God is omnipotent, God knows all, and he has a plan for my life, and although I may not understand it, and although I may be scared by it, I am still going to give God my give God my yes because give God my yes because I trust in him, and I like putting yourself in like a humble position before God, like not, and I think that's really important in college, as like we're talking about this, like we, especially like as we're starting to think about like what we're going to do with our lives, what our career is going to look like, what our like family life, what is all of that balance going to be, and at times it can be daunting, at times it can be scary, but as like certain things are put in front of us, whether it's like God helping us figure out which college we're meant to go to, or who our friends are meant to be, or certain clubs or certain things to join, like all these little yeses to how God's showing his will in our lives are helping us make the big decision, because although we don't know all, God knows all, and by having the humility to like have faith in that, I think is like really important, especially at this like such pivotal point of our lives.
Yeah.
Right. I think like what Mackenzie was saying, like, you know, we're going into college, first semester, second semester, what have you. It's always what the angel said to Mary was, don't be afraid. That's really what we have to really remember, is just don't be afraid for what God has for you, because he'll always provide for everything that he's laying out for you. Even though we might not all see it, it really comes in time. It comes in, we have to open different doors, we have to open different windows, we have to go different places, but although the end of the tunnel is really dark, God is always at the end, but the path to get there will always be revealed in time. You just don't be afraid by it, because he'll get you there. It's not going to be the straightest path. It's not going to be the clearest path. It's not going to be the easiest path. But God gives his toughest battles to his toughest soldiers. I mean, it's like you just can't be afraid by everything that God will do for you, and you just have to hold his hand and trust that at the end of the tunnel, it will always lead to him. It will always lead to his glory, but you have to trust in him and trust in everything that he does, and just don't be afraid by anything.
Yeah, and I think that like while you're on that path, like you were saying, it's not always gonna be straight, or it's gonna be a long path a lot of times. You can never go wrong by being humble, you know?
Yeah.
If you are walking around like with an ego or constantly exalting yourself, people they're not gonna like you, you know?
Yeah.
But if you always walk around humble, that's not gonna hurt anyone. It's not gonna hurt yourself. You're not gonna wind up hurting yourself. You're not gonna wind up like bothering the people around you. It's only gonna be like a good thing, you know?
Yeah. I like that.
I saw something on Instagram the other day, and it's like, you may be the only gospel that like non-believers read, which is like the way that you're putting yourself out, and like with like walking around like with humility, like when people like see like the peace that comes from humility, and like how you can like approach life with such like complete faith in God, but also complete humility, and like from a humble position versus a very like proud position, that's going to be very attractive for others as well. And I think as we're especially like in college, like we're surrounded by people of all different faiths, of all different backgrounds, and that's like what we put out there could be like we don't know like what little thing could be like not only working in our lives, but could be God working to show his will or to reveal himself in others' lives.
Yeah.
And that even just like a little thing of like how we like humbly present ourselves could be like the first taste that a lot of people have of like the true gospel.
Yeah, and I think that if you dumb it down and look at it on a very practical level, someone once told me that every conversation is a sales pitch, you know? So, like, our goal is to spread the gospel, like you were saying.
Yeah.
If you want to sell yourself and sell the gospel to someone else, you have to do that from you have to come from a humble place. You know?
Yeah, not this like high horse of like.
Yeah, like, oh, I'm better than you because I
Yeah.
know Jesus and you don't, it's
Yeah.
no, like none of us really know Jesus in the grand scheme of things,
Yeah.
Well, what's like the first thing we all learn like in Catholic school is like gospel equal good news. Like
Yeah.
that's kind of
Yeah.
that's kind of
And
the
those
thing.
little
And,
like
like
textbooks.
right, exactly. And what do we see every day? We always see the news. We always see things like that. And what we can do for those non-believers or things like that is actually spread the good news and show them what it actually
Aw.
is. It's like we're the New York Times of
Yeah.
Jesus.
Joe's on a roll.
I mean, it's like that. That's really what it is. I mean, like we're always breaking news of why Jesus is so good.
I love that. And I really liked what you said about do not be afraid, because I think, I don't know, for me I think it is like scary, especially when you reflect like, okay, or I don't know, I've like read like, okay, Mary's plans for herself, like God's plan for Mary was bigger than the plan she had for herself. That like phrase, that is scary to me. I don't know, I might be alone with that, but like, so thank you for the do not be afraid. I think that's important to remember. And what is it in the Bible, like 365 times, like do not be afraid.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I just think like, at least me personally, like I am very much so like, I love to be in control. I love to have like a perfect little plan and like every like little itemized thing. And like sometimes like it's really hard to like actually like humble myself and be like, oh, like God's plan could be different from this. And that's like, that's great news if it's different than this. Like his plan should be bigger than mine and should be like so much greater than mine. And sometimes it's like, it takes a lot of humility to like not be afraid of that and to actually like let that in, because one of the ways that we can even like just like very like quietly but rebel from God in a way is like our plan over his. And Mary's like the exact opposite of that. Like she had her whole life planned out. She knew who she was betrothed to. She was a good daughter. She loved her parents. Like she was happy to go about to get married to Joseph, and then God throws this huge like curveball to her, and that like I can't imagine she ever dreamt that reality ever.
Right.
But like the humility that it takes to be able to accept like that huge curveball, that huge like shift in your like life's trajectory. Like,
and we're definitely gonna get back to that with another one of the virtues.
Yes.
But let's head to the second one, which is charity, I think. And charity goes along with the visitation. And at first I was like, how does that make sense? Like, visit charity. How does that make sense? But then I was thinking about, so my one friend came and visited me for my birthday at college, right? And I was like, how's that? So I put that with like, and her, shout out, her name is Elizabeth, and in the mystery, like she's visiting because I'm Elizabeth. Right, okay, whatever. Like, a visit is so, like, it came up and it made me so happy, like, it is someone taking time out of their busy schedule, their busy lives, to go pay you a visit, to see how you are, to, like, check in with you, to give you of their time. And that is charity. And I was thinking, how many times in my day do I get, like, there's someone wanting my attention, wanting, like, I guess just, like, my attention or whatever, and I don't want to carve time out of my day and out of, like, my schedule to, like, share love to them. You know what I mean? I don't know. That sounds weird. But, like, to give them my attention, to give them, like, a listening ear, to talk to them. So.
Yeah, I think that's really big. I think one of the biggest things for me is I went to college and, like, was living away from home, was, like, actually, like, carving out intentional time to, like, call my family and call my grandparents and, like, call my friends and, like, and making sure, like, maintaining those relationships. And, like, I would always, like, I would call home every week for my family, and I would call every other week for my grandparents. And then at Thanksgiving, my grandma was telling my mom, she's like, Mackenzie doesn't call me enough. Like, I just want to talk to her more. And I'm like, I don't really know, like, when I could call her more. And I'm like, that's, like, the worst, like, reaction. I'm like, no, like, I would love to call you more, Mom. Like, I would love to, like, pick up the phone. And, like, if that comes at the expense of maybe, like, pushing my homework back or pushing scrolling time back. Right. Or, like, or, like, going to, like, a non-necessary club meeting, or, like, actually, like, making intentional time for, like, my grandparents that, like, were so pivotal in, like, helping raise me and, like, that love me and I love them so much. Like, I think that's like that was like definitely like a learning curve. I'm definitely still working on it, and I want to definitely make it a priority this coming semester, but like actually like making time to like maintain relationships and care for those who cared for you in a sense, I think can like be tied into like that charity and like having that like intentional loving time with them, even potentially from afar.
I think like charity is like, you know, in our world with our friends, our neighbors, or things like love our neighbor as ourselves and things like that. It's like it's giving of ourselves, our time of something that, you know, we all don't have. You know, we don't have time sometimes, but it's about what Mackenzie said, carving out that time that is of yourself, is of doing something that, you know, that you're doing, you know, like scrolling or things like that, like pushing things back that helps you help someone else in the sense. So like my family helps out all our neighbors, like we live a lot near like elderly people, so we have our neighbor who like had a stroke, so like, you know, that's not our family. That's not, you know, we have elderly people ourselves. We have elderly people in our family. And we don't necessarily have the time to, you know, help them, but what we do is we give up our time for ourselves to go help them. So, you know, you have your 24 hours in a day, you have those times to yourself, then you have time to help out the family, help out their needs, but you're going to have to cut into your time of the day to help out your neighbor.
Into the personal time.
Exactly.
No one wants to lose personal time.
But sometimes you have to. Sometimes you have to in those instances. And that's really what is charity, is giving up of yourself for someone else. And that's really what it comes down to. Like the people serving our country, they're giving up time of themselves. They're giving up time away from their families, time away from everything else in their life to go serve 300 million plus people away from their home. Yeah. Hours on end. That's charity. That's giving up of themselves to do something for their neighbor.
Yeah. Not this past summer, the summer before, my family and I, we went down to the city a couple times to do a holy hour with the Sisters of Life. And, you know, they give more than, like, probably 90% of people in the world. They just give and give and give. But they still find that time every day to do their holy hour. And the way they described it is you have to fill up your own cup before you can pour it out for someone else, you know? So I think that, like you were saying, you know, you have to give some of your own time, you know, like, but at the same time, give time to God as well, right? Like, fill up that cup so that you can pour it out for other people. And it's funny, the times when I feel like I have no time to give to other people are also the times that I'm giving to God least, you know? The more you give to God and make the effort to put your relationship with him first, it's like he makes time out of nowhere, you know? It's funny almost, you know?
It's cool. Okay, shall we move on to the third virtue, detachment from the world? And I don't even know like where to start with that, because I definitely need that, I think. It's like, because I think someone that like isn't like doesn't know a lot about God, they're gonna be like, detachment from the world, like where do you want to go? Like Mars? Like what are you talking about? But it's like they say, like, we're not of the world. Like, we're called to be, like, to not focus on this as our reality, but as, like, heaven as your reality, and to, like, strive towards heaven. So I think detachment of the world is, like, I don't even know in practice, but, like, in theory, like, striving towards heaven and not towards, like, worldly success. I don't know. What do you guys think?
It comes down to, like, if you look at the 7 deadly sins, you have greed, you have lust, you have pride. Those are all of the world. Those are all of, you know, greed. You're wanting something so bad for like money, power, things like that, of the world. Okay. But what you can do for God is greed for prayer, is want prayer more. It's get closer to God, to detach from that money, to detach from that, really rise to success and things like that. And then you look at like pride or something like that, where you have the ego, and that's where like the humbleness, the humility comes from. It's like you have so much pride in yourself. You're like, oh, I don't need God, or I don't need anything else. I just need myself. I just need everything else. That's of the world. But God says no. God says, don't. You need me as well, and He'll show you that. I mean, it's like if you do that, you're gonna run into God one point or another. It's gonna be before your death. But if you choose that, that's your free will. So that's when that really comes into play, and that's really where detachment from the world, you get to choose that. Do you want to live like that? Do you want to run into God eventually and not have him through your whole life? Or do you want him through your whole life and you detach from the world more easily than they can? And you can say no to the phone. You can say no to the greed. You can say no to the lust. You can say no to the pride and things like that very much easily than they can when they run into the brick wall of God.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I was just gonna say, like you were saying, like kind of what does that look like practically, like in a practical sense. And Joe, I mean that's good, like what you're saying. And I think that, like, it's just little things, you know, like you were saying, you're gonna run into them now or when you die, you know. And if you are lucky enough to run into them after you die, and you are lucky enough to be saved, you still got penance to do in purgatory, you know. So I think that, like, in a practical sense, detaching yourself from the world is just little penances, you know, little sacrifices. Like,
that's good. I like that.
yeah, like, you know, kind of, all right, maybe I'm not gonna go on my phone before I go to bed, you know. Maybe,
yeah.
maybe like I'm gonna, I don't know, like not eat that candy right now, you know, just little stuff like that. And then what you find is interesting is that the more you detach yourself, the more clearer your mind is. You can notice when you are about to enter into sin easier, you know. But when you're constantly living of the world, then you just can't notice it, you know. The plate is so dirty that if you have a clean plate, you notice when a crumb gets on it, you know. But if your plate's dirty, you're not gonna, it's hard to notice.
That is good.
Right.
I think one of like the biggest like practical things for me for like I guess like detachment of the world, because the quote that I guess we were trying to say earlier is like we live in the world, or we're in the world, not of the world.
Oh yeah, that's
so. But like one of the things that was super important this past semester is like carving out time, like even more intentional time, like for God throughout my day, like whether it be like especially like with the sacraments, like attending daily mass, because it's like so accessible at the Catholic college that I'm at. Like there's like I think like 3 or 4 daily masses a day, like all at different times. Like
nice.
I can wake up early and sacrifice some sleep, or I can go right before lunch, or I can like go right before dinner. Like or go like at 10 o'clock at night. Like there's like all these different like mass times. So like sacrificing time to always like make God a priority, or like making sure I'm getting to like adoration or reconciliation and stuff like that. So that's one thing, is like to make those habits for yourself and be like, wow, I really need Jesus. Like this is what is important in my world. Like even if it causes me to study 30 minutes less, like I'm detached from the grade and I am attached to God. I'm detached from...
That one was from Mackenzie, guys. That was the Mackenzie original sentence. No, but it's good though.
But I think that was like almost like where it starts, and then especially like towards the end of the semester, it was like, oh, like as you like have friends like, oh, come to mass with me. Yeah, it's a Tuesday. We have mass on Tuesday. You should come. Like Jesus wants you to be here. Like let's go. We're like getting like, I had like a friend who hadn't been to reconciliation in 4 years, and we were going to like an Advent service one Wednesday night. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna go to like confession tonight. Do you want to come with? And she's like, I would love to come. And then we went to like the confession service together, and that was just like, awesome. It was awesome. And it's like I think like, and that goes back to like we are in the world. Like even though we're not of the world, like we can't pretend like the world doesn't exist and like forget all the other things around us. And I think like by fostering that community and like even just a simple invite, people are always free to say no and like go to the other things, or maybe there are other priorities and you don't know what'll speak to someone. But I think finding that intentional time to remind yourself who the priority is and what the priority is, and then also allowing that like joy and light and focus that comes from that, and allowing it to like bring in others, because we're called to be like a community of believers. And like that's when we bring in others. I always like, some of my favorite memories from the semester were just like texting with a few friends and be like, oh, like let's go to mass tonight. So we went to mass, and it's just like, it's just like special, I guess, when you can kind of foster that with others as well.
That's cool.
I want to go back to what Nick said real quick with like the little sacrifices and things like that, because like really detachment does equal sacrifice. It equals, you know, that's, you know, what do we give up at Lent? That's the sacrifice. That's the detachment from the worldly thing that we choose to detach, or, you know, we devote a life of prayer during Lent or something like that. Mm-hmm. And then you think of like sacrifice, it's like that was detachment from the world. Yeah. That was giving up of himself. That was the charity. That was being humble. That's bringing everything together is what he did on the cross. He detached from the world to live his divine life after 33 years and says, Lord, I'm here.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Example number one.
Example number one.
Yeah, and kind of like what you were saying, Mackenzie, it's a choice you have to make. You know, I can, like, a priest can stand at the altar and tell me, hey, you gotta, like, make sacrifices. You can say that 1,000 times, but until I or any of us have that decision in our heads, like, no, I want to take my relationship with God more serious, then it has to be totally from the will. You know, it can't.
Yeah.
It's not a mind thing. You know, you can't just know it. You actually have to make that decision to put it
Yeah.
into practice. And because this is the third joyful mystery, you know, you look at the nativity, right?
Yeah.
That Jesus was born in a manger, you know, with a bunch of shepherds were frowned upon by society back in the day, you know.
Mhm.
He was born poor, right? He was born in the world, but not of the world, like you just said, because he made that decision to die for us, you know.
Yeah, and I like what you said about sacrificing, and I think that's something that has a little, like, almost gone out of practice a little bit for us Catholics. Like, I think they're, like, obviously, traditionally Catholics, like, didn't have meat on any Fridays, and now there's something from the bishops, like, from the United States of, like, yeah, this was, like, the tradition. Now we're asking you to do some kind of fasting on Fridays, like, any Friday, not Lent, do some kind of fasting. And I don't know. I think it's something we should think about, like how to put that into practice. I know I learned about this from my cousin Alex, and he told me he doesn't use social media on Fridays. That's his fasting for Lent. And I was like, I don't know. That's a good one.
Yeah.
Because it's hard because Fridays, like, Fridays in college, like, that's, you know, celebration time. That's party time, you know. But which, like, it still can be, like, happy and a fun Friday, you know. But like, Friday is the day that God made that, like, that Jesus made that ultimate sacrifice of himself. So what can we make some kind of small sacrifice the day that he made the ultimate sacrifice? Just once a week. I don't have any other ideas of what to do. I guess, like you said, something small. Like, I'm not gonna have that piece of candy, or I'm not gonna scroll right now. I'm gonna maybe say mystery. Like, you know what I mean? I guess.
Yeah, I mean, like, you look at some of the saints. The saints are, like, because they, like, did sacrifices more than anyone else, you know.
Mhm.
And, like, it's like I was, like, you know, like, little things, you know, like, some saints would just, like, sleep on the floor for a night, you know, or, like, I remember I tried this once for, like, a month. Some of the saints would put, like, a rock in their shoe just so it's, like, uncomfortable when you walk around.
Right.
And it's like, that's, like, the smallest thing in the world, but every time you take a step, you're thinking, oh yeah, I have a rock in my shoe. Why? Because of God, you know. It's like, yeah, it's uncomfortable, but it just keeps your mind on God, you know.
Yeah.
I think there's something, like, so powerful about, like, little actions of denying ourselves, because I mean, like, that truly is how we foster more obedience towards God's will for our life by by doing, like those who are, like, good in small things are, like, good in big things, like, by, like, little acts of, like, small, like giving up sugar on Fridays, or social media, or putting a rock in our shoe, or, like, giving up time to sleep. Like, maybe you, like, wake up, like,
See us all limping next Friday.
or maybe you, like, wake up super early, like, on Fridays to, like, make time for prayer. Like, you're giving up sleep. Like, all these things that we could give up are, like, conditioning our hearts and conditioning, like, our souls and our minds in order to be able to, like, deny ourselves of earthly things so that we can choose God. Because at some point or another, like, there will be a time where you might have to make, like, a lot bigger choice. Like, there are, like with a lot of, like, tragedies in the world, like, do you deny yourself, like, especially, like, as it pertains to, like, when we're older and, like, choosing career and family and, like, many of, like, the complexities that come with family life. Like, there's a lot of, like, self-denial that you have to do there. And by, like, conditioning ourselves to do these little things and always choose God even amidst a little bit of suffering, it's almost like working out. Like, the more you do it, like, the muscle gets bigger, you get stronger, you enjoy doing it, and it becomes easier over time. And, like, by doing these little things, when we're faced with a big challenge at some point in our life, we'll be better conditioned to deny the flesh and actually, like, choose God, whatever that situation may be.
Yeah,
like that.
and I don't know what you said that made me think of this, but if you look at the way Plato believed the relationship between body and soul was that the soul was trapped by the body, you know, and it
Right.
took philosophy and understanding things and wisdom to let the soul escape from the body, right? And I think that, well, obviously that's like not really true somewhat. You
Right,
kind of,
yeah.
like, we're slaves to our bodies, you know, think about it. Like, I know I say, like, oh, it's easy to just not go on Instagram every night, but I do, you know?
Right.
Like, we're slaves to our bodies constantly throughout the day, and giving something up lets our soul, which is higher, escape from that, you know?
Yeah. And speaking of slave to our body, self-denial, all that, we'll open with our fourth virtue, which is like this word that is like, I don't know, I feel like it makes people like cringe, right? Okay, we're gonna go. Purity is the fourth virtue, going with the
Ooh.
presentation. Right? It kind of makes you
Oh.
cringe. I don't know why. No, like, it doesn't, but like for some reason, like I think like the media society has like turned that word into something like almost like ugly, even though I don't know,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Because they're like toxicity, whatever, where it's like, I don't know. I think they connected a lot with like, you know, like you can't wear like short sleeves as a woman. I don't know. You know what I mean? Like I feel like especially for girls, like that's a word that people don't like or something for some reason, but it's a virtue. And self-denial is a big factor in that, and like not being a slave to your body, like you said. I don't know. I guess I'll start with some like practical things. I don't know. I think something important is like, what are you like feeding yourself with? Like, because that is gonna either help your purity or like stunt it a lot. So I think it's like all kinds of media. Like it can be social media. Like who are you following? Like, do we need the model? Do we need whatever it is? It's for women and men too. Like, do we need the Calvin Klein model to follow them? And like the female athlete, the male athlete, whatever. Like there's a line, and I feel like the person knows why or why not they're following them, whatever. But I think that's a practical way to help clean up your feed, to keep your mind
Yeah.
and your plate clean. Another small thing is like, I think like this bad one, but like shows and even like music. It shows is like, I'm like hypocritical right now because we're laughing. We like this show, How I Met Your Mother. We laugh. Some of the stuff is like in bad taste, where it's just like disrespectful to humans, like not even like men or women, like just both. But I don't know. There's like some kind of balance that you have to strike, and I don't know it, but you know.
There is, and I think that you need like strength with purity as well. And this was something I remember we were watching a movie one time, and like I was at your house, and I don't know, like a spicy scene came on, and you're like, oh, fast forward right away, and that was just like, I don't know, that was like nothing like grew up that I'm like, oh, like that makes so much sense. Of course you're gonna like fast forward that like spicy scene, like duh. And that's like purity of like mind and like purity of thought, but like you're like strength that too. And I think like, I don't know, that's something like you just think, I was like, oh, like yeah, no, duh. And that's like a little like tiny practical way to do it. Like if you're watching a movie with like your friends at college, either speaking up and skipping it, or just like looking away yourself,
Just like start talking to them,
like like diverting the energy, like anything you can do just like to like kind of like guard like purity of mind, I think is really important
Yeah.
as well, because that's like, I think like probably like what, when you don't have purity of mind, that's when everything else kind of starts to go as well. So I think it really
Yeah.
starts with like mentality and like how are you actually approaching it, and why, and the why of what you're approaching it as well.
Yeah, and I think that also keeping in the back of your head that it's a journey to being pure, or being the most pure version of yourself.
Yeah.
I didn't know this until recently, but Mary Magdalene, you know, like you hear the story, Jesus, you know, like Jesus comes and she's like saved, you know, she would lived in an
Yeah.
impure life, and then now she's like this great saint, but it wasn't like that. She actually struggled with her purity a lot after the fact, and went and lived in almost like a monk in a cave after Jesus died, and still battled with being impure, and it was a journey for her, you know.
Yeah.
Or like St. John Bosco, for example, he was a teacher and had a vision where he saw all of his students, and they all had on like these gowns, and they were all gray and ripped and all this stuff, and they were white, but now they're not anymore, and he interpreted that as, oh, they're not pure, right? So then he like began teaching them deeper and helping them to fast and do penance and all this stuff, had another vision later, and all their gowns were white again, like pearly white. And it's
Wow.
yeah, so I think that it's just like it's a journey, you know, and it's not something that's going to be, you're not going to wake up one day and just be insanely pure, you know.
Yeah.
It's a process, and it has to be done with Jesus, you know. I heard this priest one time giving a homily. He was like, people try to look at the cross and look at it and say, oh, that's beautiful, he died for us, but it's not, you know. Like, he has the weight of our sins on his chest. He's bloody and cut and bruised, and because it's dirty, it's impure, it's our sins, right? And I think that, like, the relationship with Christ is one that, like, you have to walk with him. That's a journey as well, to being pure.
Yeah.
Right.
And holding his hand is like the best way to get there.
Yeah.
Right. Like, I think of the confessional as like you're dumping your trash in there. That's really, I mean, that's really where you're doing it. I mean, like, you're dumping your trash in there, but he already collected everything. He knows exactly what you're gonna do. He knows when you're gonna do it, but he knows at the end, if you follow him, if you are not afraid, if you're being humble to everything, that you'll make it. It's just what Nick said. It's a journey. It'll take Jesus. It'll take the confessional. It'll take things to get yourself pure, yourself clean. Because when we go to him at the end, we're gonna want to be all white. We're gonna want to be purely clean. We're gonna want to completely nice, completely sharp. Like we're going to a dinner. That's basically what needs to happen. But Jesus doesn't expect that from us every single day. He knows we're not perfect. He knows we're going to do some bad things. But that's why he made confession. That's why he made priests. That's why he made the gospel. That's why he made things for us to look at, to do the journey with him, and to actually walk with him.
Yeah, and I think that, like, yeah, that's the most important part, like you were saying, is, like, just giving him that yes, like, yes, I'm going to try, and when we fall, which is what's going to happen, you know, we're humans, to get back up, dust ourselves off, and keep walking with him, you know. I had this one, I forget who it was that said it, but they said that Christ paid a debt he didn't owe because we owed a debt we couldn't pay, right? And it's like, we're on the winning team, you know, like, Jesus already died for us. The opportunity to be saved is already there, you know. We just have to give him that yes to try, because that's all that he wants, you know. It's a door with a knob on one side, you know. Christ on the other side, we just have to open the door, right?
Yeah. I think that's especially helpful when it feels like a little hopeless.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, but how am I going to do this? Like, it's so hard. It's like this trash is everywhere, you know, but
We just have to keep going.
Yeah.
Just like the trash on Tuesdays or Wednesdays, they'll pick it up and throw it away. You just got to keep moving forward.
Yeah.
That's really all it is. You throw it away, and then you get another trash bag. You get another clean trash bag. It's up to you if you want to put something in it, but Jesus knows you're putting something in it, and you're going to throw it away the next day. But it just keeps going and going and going, because Jesus is there to put in the new trash bag.
yeah.
Jesus is there to bring us a new life and to bring us forward, because, you know, the road from A to B, from earth to heaven, is really rocky. It's not clean. You're going to trip. You're going to fall. But Jesus is right there if you hold his hand and you follow him.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Fifth one. Resignation to the will of God. What's with our finding in the temple?
Yeah.
It's kind of like detachment, honestly. It's like,
Yeah,
it's kind
it
of like,
is.
It's kind of like
We did touch on
the
it.
sacrifice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think, like, what Mackenzie was saying, like, that one we can really, like, implement as college students, because we're, like, we have these plans that we think we want to do, and, like, yes, like, God leads you through, like, your desires and stuff like that, but, like, at the end of the day, like, resigning to what he sees for your life, which can be, like, I don't know, like, with your primary and secondary vocation of, like, your career, and, like, whether you join a religious life or be ordained or be married and have a bunch of kids, you know, like, any of those paths that, I don't know, like, resigning to the one he has for you. What do we think?
Yeah, I think that this one kind of, like, all the other ones kind of tie in with this one.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, all right, humility, God, I know nothing. I'm just, like, I'm stupid, basically, and you know everything.
Yeah.
You know, like, charity, like, but, like, I still want to give myself to you. And then detachment of the world, right? Like, all right, the world is a rough place. Let me just take a step back, get out of this. And then purity, like, all right,
Yeah.
this is really difficult. Let me just keep trying because you're the end goal, right? And I think that you said it in the beginning about, like, it's now or never.
Mm-hmm.
And there's this one, like, phrase, I think it's in Latin. I just don't know what it is. And it's that fortune favors the bold, right? And I think that with God, you have to be bold, right? Like you were saying,
Yeah.
it takes strength, Mackenzie. It's not, like, sometimes you have to say, God, it's not God, can you please make me stronger? It's God, make me stronger, you know? It's not out of selfishness, like, oh, I want to be stronger. It's, no, I want to be stronger for you, God. Make me
Yeah.
stronger, right? Whatever you are going to send my way, I trust that it's going to be for the better, but
Yeah.
make me stronger so I can serve you better, right?
I think it's like, you ask God to, like, be stronger to do it, but then you also, you have to give up of yourself to, do it.
Yeah,
Because,
yeah,
like,
yeah.
if you think about, like, what I was saying with the journey, like, Jesus is not just dragging you along. Like,
Right.
you're walking too. Like, you're
Right.
doing everything too. It's more like, God, make me stronger, and I'm going to do it with you. Like, you're going to give me all the materials I need, and I'll help put it together.
Yeah.
Like,
Start hammering the nails.
right. It's a given. It's two-partner relationship.
Right.
It takes two to do it with him, and it's like, with Mary wasn't carrying the child alone. She was with Joseph. She was with Jesus. She was with
Yeah.
everything that she needed, that God gave her, but she couldn't do it alone. That's really what, that's what Angel Gabriel was like. Don't be afraid. You're gonna be with all these people. That's kind of like how it is.
Yeah.
God's gonna help you get there. God's gonna, you have to resign of yourself to
Yeah.
do it. But
And you do have all these people.
exactly. That's really what it is. So it's you have to resign. You just gotta do your thing, and he'll help you get there. He's just not gonna drag you along. You just gotta
Yeah.
do it with him.
Yeah, I think it kind of reminds me of the story in the Old Testament where Jacob fights the angel, which is so awesome. Like, fighting an angel, oh my goodness. But, like, he's dealing with problems with, like, his brother,
The
right?
wrestling.
Yeah.
Sorry, I just got.
Yeah.
Just remembered.
And, like, the angel comes to him, he has the angel in a headlock, and he says, give me your blessing, and the angel, like, hits him in his hip, kind of, like, wounds him a little bit, says, no, give me your blessing or I'm not letting go. And so the angel gives him his blessing, and then he lets him go. And, like, sometimes you have to wrestle with God a little bit. It's what someone told me one time. You have to wrestle with God a little bit, Like, he wants you to not be angry or be upset with him, but he wants you to, like, give a little, like, to, like, fight back a little
Yeah.
bit.
Have some
you know?
audacity.
Yeah, exactly. Right? Like, because that's, like, you have to be bold with God, right?
Yeah.
Like, tell him, like, no, God, I'm angry or upset with where I'm at in life. Or, God, I'm really happy. Can you please, like, continue to bless me, right?
Yeah.
It's boldness.
Yeah.
Nick's gonna make the Bible movie into the WWE.
Well, I think it's so, like, the next part of that story, right, is like God changes Jacob's name to Israel, and Israel means, like, I don't remember
God saves.
no, it's like
No.
one wrestles with God.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh, oh.
And that's like God's like chosen people are like those who like wrestle with him. And like
What?
Yeah.
isn't
I
that
had
that's
not
just
thought
like
about this, guys.
that's just like a really like crazy like I think
It
like
ain't easy. It
like-
ain't easy.
like we're not, like yes we are called to like willfully accept God's will for our life and like humbly do that and recognize like his authority over us, but like we're not called just to be like passive believers. Like we're called to be like active and like really like engaging with God, and like it's the same reason like why we pray. Like although God could like do all these things without our prayers, he wants us to partake with him.
Yes.
That's why we pray, even though he knows all our wants and needs and knows what he will do anyways. He tells us to pray. And in the same thing, like even though he has a will for our life and it's going to be exerted, like he wants us to partake in that will
Yeah.
for him. So even though there's a part of like resigning to your will, not my own, it's your will, but with like we're working
Like,
on it
make
together.
your will my
Make your
own.
will my own.
That's something I had just like asked this priest, Father Royce, because I was like, why do we do prayers of petition if he knows what's best for us and he like you know what I mean? Like how does that even make sense? Like why would I ask like why would I ask God like God send me this when he knows what's actually good for me? But he was saying, all right, think about it this way. You like say your parents have this rule like no candy before no dessert before you finish your homework. And you're like, okay, you're doing your homework and you're like, Mom and Dad, like, can I please have a piece of candy? Like, please. and like they're your child, you're their child, and they love you, and they're like, okay, fine, you can have a piece of candy. Like, God is our good Father, and He wants to give us like good things, and yeah, prayers of petition. There you go, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, I never thought about it like that. That's interesting.
I mean, it's like, you know, it's like it's just like praying for what is on your heart. It's like, you know,
Yeah.
you'll feel it when it's right, and like the candy, I guess the kid likes the candy. But like, I mean, it's like you'll know when it's like when it's right, when it's time for something to happen. You'll think about it. It'll be on your heart. You won't.
If you say so.
I mean, it'll. I mean, don't be afraid. I mean, that's really. Hey, I mean, the whole like joyful mysteries. If you like actually like, if you play this back, you'll like see everything tie together. It just it's like a beautiful bow at the end of the gift. It's like that's what He's giving to you. It's literally all there. It's spelled out. It's the writing on the wall. Just read it.
There's your inheritance.
Exactly.
Thanks for the bow, Joe.
Mm-hmm.
And
Glad to tie it.
and thank you all for coming. It was so fun. We sat here for like an hour and a half before. We could have this could have been like 3 hours, but for the sake of the audience. And thank you guys for listening, and we'll see you again soon.
Thank
Peace.
you.
Bye.